My name is Kubyane. I'm the co-founder and the tech lead of eFama app.
And I'm Shadrack Kubyane. I'm the co-founder and CEO of eFama app.
So the biggest motivation for our startup was our upbringing. We were raised by hardworking farmers. Access to market, having produce there, and overnight is just turned into profit losses, income losses, was one of those things. We were motivated to start a way for farmers to be able to sell their produce online, have access to a vast amount of actually buyers without even leaving the farm.
So two sets of users come to mind when it comes to those that need to use our app and those that have been impacted by our platform. Farmer Brian, who's become not just a farmer on our platform, but a dear friend as well. When we first came in contact with him, he was battling in terms of market access. He was farming without knowing where he was going to sell his produce or for how much he was going to sell his produce. His team was very small. They were battling with mechanization because obviously they don't have resources due to a non-consistent cash flow. Fast forward to 6 months later, after that first encounter and welcoming him to our ecosystem, he grew by 300% and he actually multiplied his staff count by
Twice.
He multiplied his staff count by 2 times, and let's just say he was getting much better sleep. So maybe we provide modern technology. We do give our farmers much better assurance and better quality sleep by them knowing as they lower seeds into the ground, as they go through different stages of cultivation, they already know that our 6,000 strong buyer pool is waiting to get that produce off their hands. And of course, other users that may not be so obvious, we have non-profit organizations that are really trying to stretch every dollar, every rand to feed as many mouths. But when they have to purchase food off retail shelves, we love our retailers, they're convenient, but with all that convenience, the pricing point is much higher. So when they come to eFama and buy directly from farmers, they're able to feed way more mouths. One of the recent cases is one of the academies or colleges that I went through that is run by one of the mining companies that is very familiar to most audiences. They needed to see how they can jump from distributing 2 meals a day to their students that are actually residents with them in a boarding facility setup. But no matter how much they ran the numbers, no matter how many efficiencies, they just couldn't stretch their budget further. They come to eFama, not only were they able to increase to a third meal, but they were able to have a residue to also support other facilities beyond that particular boarding facility, all thanks to buying directly from the farm. So when we as eFarmers say we bring the farm to the door, to your doorstep, we mean it. And we have seen, as children that were raised by farmers, we have come full circle to be in agriculture. But instead of dirt under our nails, we have code at our fingertips, where we are transforming society for better tomorrow.
So currently we have about 5,000 farmers on our platform. We have 6,000 buyers as well. And we've had a privilege of being backed by really big names within the tech and the finance ecosystem. And even being a part of the program we're working with Google, there's a saying that if you sharpen your axe, you cut the 3 even faster. So this has really sharpened our go-to-market strategy, because in the next 36 months, we want to be able to reach at least 10,000 farmers and 100,000 buyers to add and verify them into our ecosystem. So our next level of growth really is refining our tech, growing our ecosystem, and growing our revenue, including the impact that you will see to our end users, which are farmers.
And part of that next stage of growth, our farmers have been talking and we've been listening. It is incredibly hard for farmers to farm without knowing where they will sell their produce, but most importantly, for how much. And so that's what led us into establishing a product offering within eFama that we have called Kusasa, which means tomorrow, which means the future. This AI-powered forecasting engine predicts pricing up to 90 days and predicts demand, meaning what will sell in your particular locality. Is there going to be demand-supply dynamics that may affect you? I mean, if everybody plants tomato in your particular region, then we'll have so many losers. But if we can predict intuitively through SASA that, listen, dear farmer or dear farmer ecosystem, you may not want to delve too much into tomato during this particular window, that our historical data, our historical trends, and our historical predictive dynamics are showing that this is where the trajectory is going. So two things that the forecasting engine is actually gearing to predict really well. What's the demand and what's the pricing point, which is something that traditional markets have not been able to provide despite the vast amount of data that they have at their fingertips. But thanks to eFama, thanks to the team, and thanks to SASA as an emerging solution that is powered by Google, we are now able to roll out that benefit into the market. So our next stage of growth is pivoting to those 10,000 farmers, 100,000 users, and be able to give farmers much better sleep and less butterflies in their tummy. In terms of how Google for Startup Accelerator has helped develop our offering, I'm going to touch on how the program impacted us in our leadership and in our founder posture. And then she will touch on the type of resources that the Google for Startup Accelerator brought into our kitty to improve our journey as founders. You know, there's a saying in Africa that it takes a village. As a founder, one does not realize that it is very risky and it can introduce a lot of friction, a lot of chaos when one attempts to fly solo into their entrepreneurship journey. So whether that was intentional or that happened as a byproduct, the Google for Startup Accelerator program gifted us with a very strong sense of belonging, a sense of community, whether it was with fellow founders, whether it's with alumni, or whether it's with the investor ecosystem, including the mentors that were brought to us. The kind of mentors that we as eFama would not necessarily be able to afford per their hourly rate or per their fee models. But Google for Startup Accelerator program plugged us into this ready ecosystem, which is funny because in eFama, we work with farmers that go through different cultivation processes. So the community triggered and sustained a 90-day long cultivation of our personal development refinement, perspective and worldview stretched, and just seeing new possibilities that may have never crossed our mind just because we belong to this environment and this ecosystem. So that's the one side of the impact. Resources, knowledge, insight, tools, I will leave that to my tech lead.
Absolutely. So one of the barriers really, because if you see in the African context, most of the very developed companies, especially in technologies that solve African problems, are not from Africa. Why? Because software development, building a tech startup is very, very expensive. So working with Google firstly gave us platforms where a small team can solve really big problems and solve those problems really, really fast. Access to credits, experimenting in technology before your technology is even used by clients that can pay you, the costs are already high. So that gave us a really freedom to experiment with the tools, to experiment because we have credits now, we can build in real time and not incur as many costs would have incurred upfront. And also access to mentors, technical mentors, especially because I'm the tech lead. It's always very expensive to hire a senior engineer to sit with you just for an hour. But we've had mentors that provided us with technical guidance on how are we going to build things that are not going to break, things that are going to help. So we started solving problems that we thought maybe we'll solve them in like 3 or 4 years, but already we were doing those things. We were developing solutions that will take months to develop, but we were developing them in a matter of days because of the tools and the guidance that we were getting from the Google Startup Accelerator program mentors and tools that we actually received. Most of the tools that make up our tech stack, firstly, we are a cloud native startup. Google Cloud was there from the very beginning, where we were hosting our applications. We're using tools like Firebase for notification and safeguard our user logins and credentials. And recently, Vertex AI has been like everything when it comes to training our model. BigQuery as well is that tool that makes it very easy. And it's very exciting because Google tools are very easy to use. Whether you are a super experienced engineer or you just started. I mean, some of the features that we build them with students that have not even graduated yet. We build them with business side of the company, people who don't understand code, but they were part of the building of these solutions because it provided an interface where even if you have very low knowledge of code or no knowledge of coding, you can actually build something that can actually be used. So those tools are the tools that we can do with. One of the things we recently did, we migrated our back end as well to run on Cloud Run because it just spin resources automatically. It lessened the burden of being able to manage things so that we can focus on, now we have tech, we have to take it out there to be sold and not spend too much time on maintaining our operating system and all those kind of things. And there's lesser integrations. The more your platform runs on your solution runs on one platform, there's lesser maintenance, there's lesser integration headache that actually happen, and the cost, they actually lower because there's lesser moving part. So it has been a very useful tools that we got to access.
And very excitingly, the further to my co-founders' insights on our toolkit, how it has been impacted by Google and the Google Startup Accelerator program, availing insights and how to. Within an hour, our team was able to experiment with how to deploy AI agents, and furthermore, how to go beyond deploying those AI agents, but target them at specific processes in our business that require efficiencies or improvement, even with the humans in the loop. So on the one hand, we are continuing to create jobs, but on the other hand, as both a cloud native startup and an AI native startup, we need to be watchful on building in efficiencies into our business, into our process, so that even while we are here talking to you and while our team is out in the field, agents can be addressing queries that are directed to us into our business 24/7, even in our sleep, because that's the future.
So obviously raising capital very early is the early stage of raising capital is really, really difficult because you don't really have numbers to prove what you do. People back you. So having received capital from companies like Google, it really opened up other doors as well, because whenever you get trusted by a trusted company, it makes it easier for other companies as well to say, maybe let's hear them up. So the raising of capital has been a great milestone. The growth in our user base has been a great milestone as well. And being able to have a technology that exists on more than 11,000 phones today has been a great success. And I think what's also very closest to our heart is when we saw some of the farmers, they've started growing for up to 300%, doubling their head count, employing more people. That is really remind us, like, this is why we do what we do. So the advice that I would have for new founders is find your tribe, find your people. Building a tech startup is incredibly difficult, but is one of the most high rewarding things. One of the investors was telling us, make no mistake. There's no use for you to making mistakes that have been made by others, which you would have learned from if you were a part of an ecosystem. So like my co-founder said, Google Startup Accelerator program is opening up. That's a way of finding lasting relationships that you need for your journey.
Your startup journey, as you tie your shoelaces, as you get ready for the journey ahead, just make up your mind to never fly solo. We are stronger in numbers, and we are built as human beings now. We are built for community. When you have a sense of belonging in a community, your perspective, your worldview will be stretched beyond what you thought was possible. What you thought needed to be solved, you may be solving for something slightly different from what you needed to solve for. So In a nutshell, belong. In a nutshell, intentionally plug into community. And if you can, hit up that application. The Google for Startup Accelerator might just be the first community that you may want to put on your radar, because there's insights, there's mentorship, there's resources, and yes, there's community. Don't fly solo.